So today we're going to look at the claims made by some big progressive YouTubers like Kulinski and David Pakman that Iran somehow has some sort of a moral high ground in this entire Iran-US conflict that's playing out right now. Let's talk about it. My name is Sharma. Welcome to the Sharma Show. Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Sharma Show. Thank you very much for joining me today. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate you. So there's a lot of things that many liberal commentators and many conservative commentators are saying about this whole Iran-US conflict. And there's a lot of things that, in my opinion, they're getting right, and a lot of things that both of these sides are getting wrong. So today I'm going to be discussing some of the comments made by people like David Pakman and Kulinski that are big progressive YouTubers who have a massive platform, and some of the things that they're saying about the Soleimani strike and some of the things that they're saying about Iran and the Iranian regime. So look, to even start us off, there's a lot of things that I actually agree with these guys on. For instance, they make the case that the US has always had a tendency to get involved in unnecessary wars, and the Middle East is one such example, and they need to be pulling out of the war in the Middle East, and I completely agree with them there. The US has a history of regime change wars, and often under the pressure of the military-industrial complex gets involved in these unnecessary wars, which leads to profit for the military-industrial complex. But what really it leads to is loss of life and mental health for the thousands and thousands of people that go to these unnecessary wars thinking that they're just fighting for their country. So I completely share their concerns when it comes to the United States getting involved in unnecessary regime change wars. But the problem is that in making this point and in criticizing the foreign policy of the United States, some of these progressive YouTubers are kind of going a little bit overboard in their assessment of Qasem Soleimani and the Iranian regime. You already have Hollywood people that are out there apologizing to the Iranian regime, which I'm like... But you also have Kulinski and David Pakman that are almost kind of like defending Soleimani. Like, it's possible to criticize both Trump and Soleimani. You don't have to praise one to criticize the other.
And, quite frankly, he was one of the leaders in the fight to defeat ISIS, and he succeeded in defeating ISIS. And he defeated ISIS, and that's his claim to fame, and we assassinated him. Now, I just need everybody to understand that this is a dude who we were just allies with.
No. Hell no!
So Kyle is almost painting this guy as some sort of a hero of the Middle East, the leader of the resistance, the leader of the fight against ISIS, as if this guy is a hero who's fighting ISIS from the goodness of his heart. He's not fighting ISIS for altruistic reasons. He is fighting ISIS to establish Shia supremacy and Shia domination in the region. He wants to destroy any Sunni power in the Middle East and replace it with Shia supremacy. That's the game here. His Quds force that he was a head of used to support terror organizations and terror proxies like Hezbollah in Lebanon and other Shia militias throughout the Middle East. These same Shia militias have carried out brutal massacres of innocent Sunnis in the name of the fight against ISIS.
Shia militias have taken a leading role in pushing back the Sunni Islamic State or ISIS offensive alongside Kurdish forces and the Iraq army. But the Amnesty report accuses the militias of carrying out abductions, torture and executions against the Sunni civilian population in parts of Iraq.
This is something that has even been documented by Human Rights Watch. This is not some nice guy fighting the terrorists.
And as crazy as it is, under Donald Trump, Iran has shown more restraint than we have. And people who have been watching this show for a while, I am no apologist for Iran. I am no apologist for Iranian regimes. I've said before, the people of Iran are an increasingly young, progressive population. The leaders in Iran are not that, and I have been no shortage of extremely critical. But in the Trump era, it's actually been Iran that's been the more rational and less erratic actor in that relationship between the United States and Iran.
And again, these guys are not rational actors that have some sort of moral high ground. Iran, and specifically Soleimani and the Quds Force, have trained Shia children to go fight and die in the fight against ISIS. According to the New York Times, Afghan immigrant children as young as 14 are being recruited in Iran to fight and die in Syria. Human Rights Watch found that Afghan Shia children died fighting for the Fatemiyun division in Syria. Does that qualify him to be just as bad as the US or the Sunni terror organizations yet? Oh, and also one more thing. This is something that I was made aware of in a podcast that I did with Armin Navabi, who is a prominent Iranian origin atheist and secular activist. He told me something about the Quds Force that even I didn't know originally, and I'm not sure how many people actually know this. He explained that the meaning of Quds in Quds Force is Jerusalem. So the ultimate aim of the Quds Force that was headed by Soleimani was the conquest of Jerusalem and bringing Jerusalem back to Islam. The other goal of the Quds Force is the destruction of the Israeli state, which means genocide of the Jewish people. Kyle also came out and said that these people were kind of allies of the United States in the Middle East. Look, they may have been working towards a similar cause, which is elimination of ISIS. But they were not allies. Their goals were not nearly the same. When one of your allies' stated goal is the destruction of one of your key allies, you can't really call them an ally, can you? Not only that, they're also currently brutally suppressing the anti-regime protests that have started again in full swing. So again, I don't think that they have any grounds to claim the moral high ground here.
He was kind of viewed by Iranians as like an apolitical figure because he was not involved in the domestic repression at home.
According to Reuters, regime security forces, including Soleimani's Quds Force, killed more than 1,500 people and jailed at least 7,000 in the brutal crackdown against the anti-regime protesters. This used to be the second most powerful person in Iran behind the supreme leader, so you can't tell me that this guy had no say in how the anti-regime protests were going to be handled. Secondly, as I pointed out before, this was a guy that supported Shia terrorist organizations and Shia militias throughout the Middle East, which massacred innocent people, and his Quds Force also trained and sent children to their deaths in the Middle East. I think sending children to their deaths qualifies as oppression. Judges?
Judges?
Thank you.
So what happened? We ended up killing a couple dozen in the Shia militias. That's what then led to the embassy protests, where people showed up to the American embassy and they were protesting. They wanted the U.S. out of Iraq now. That seems to me like a pretty decent response. It's not over the top. It's not wild.
Now, his clueless followers loved it, despite these protests clearly not being an Iranian attack on the United States.
Actually, it was an Iranian attack because there is ample proof that Kataib Hezbollah is an organization that is funded and supported by the Quds Force. The people who attacked the embassy were supporters of Kataib Hezbollah. So it is impossible to suggest that Soleimani had no hand in planning this attack on the US embassy. Also, they weren't just protesting. These were violent protests, and the Iraqi security personnel that were supposed to be guarding the embassy just kind of left. And we all know how much influence Iran and Soleimani particularly had in the Iraqi government. So why did these security personnel that were supposed to be guarding the embassy just up and leave if they did not have direction from the Iraqi authorities? So at a point, there was just some fiberglass between US civilians and these angry, violent protesters. See, the thing is, throughout 2019, Iran had escalated attacks against the United States and on United States interests without Trump really responding in any way. Trump would come out and make a lot of noise and say that we're going to respond, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, but he never really came out and responded in any meaningful way. So Iran made the mistake of thinking that Trump would never respond no matter what. That was their mistake, and so they overplayed their hand by attacking the US embassy in Iraq. That ended up being a red line for Trump that he did not want Iran to cross.
Wow, wow, wow. According to the Iraqi Prime Minister, Soleimani was not planning an attack. He was in Iraq. This is where he was killed, at the Iraqi airport. He was in Iraq carrying a message to Saudi Arabia on how to reduce Iran-Saudi tensions as part of an Iraqi mediation effort. And then he's responding to a tweet that says, this is stunning. Iraq Prime Minister tells Parliament U.S. troops should leave, says Donald Trump called him to ask him to mediate with Iran, and then ordered drone strike on Soleimani, says Soleimani carrying response to Saudi initiative to diffuse tension when he was hit. He was literally on a peace mission when he was murdered, when he was assassinated. a peace mission.
Okay, look, they were there to sign a treaty with Saudi Arabia, but this does not mean that this was a peace treaty. This was in a way Saudi Arabia surrendering to Iran because Iran had now become too powerful and too influential in the Middle East for Saudi Arabia to deal with. So let's be under no impression that this treaty was somehow going to result in peace in the Middle East. This would mean more aggressiveness and more violence from Iran in the Middle East towards Sunni people. Remember, the goal here isn't peace. The goal here is Shia domination and Shia supremacy and bringing the holy sites of Karbala and Jerusalem back to the Iranian Islamic Empire.
You know, the Ayatollah gave a speech and was saying very clearly, and Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah, was giving a speech where he was like, we rule out, by any stretch of the imagination, attacking any American civilians. If we do anything, it's going to be against military sites. That's what they said. Which, by the way, is in stark contrast to Trump, who tweeted the other day, if you do anything in response to me massacring, murdering your general, I will attack 52 Iranian sites, including, quote, cultural sites.
Come on, man. Are we really that naive that we're going to take the word of the Iranian regime and a terror organization like Hezbollah? They say this because Iran will not attack Americans directly because Iran cannot afford to attack Americans directly. They will attack Americans through their various proxies and through lone wolf attacks. You're trying to take the Iranian regime on its word. The Iranian regime for 3 days kept saying that they did not shoot down their own plane. They kept saying that whoever's saying that Iran shot down their own plane, it's basically all Western propaganda. 3 days later, they turn around and say, what? Yeah, we shot down our own plane. Look, they're saying they're not going to attack American citizens is because they need plausible deniability. Any direct attack on Americans is going to lead to an all-out war, which is going to mean the end of the Iranian regime and the death of the supreme leader. Obviously, they don't want that. So let's not pretend that the Iranian regime is suddenly trustworthy and we can take them at their word. And again, these guys that I'm criticizing right now, Kyle Kulinski and David Pakman, these guys say stuff, a lot of stuff that I actually agree with. I think there needs to be a discussion whether Trump should have taken such a drastic measure in taking out the number 2 guy in the Iranian regime. I also agree with the criticisms that these two guys are making of, some people on Fox News that are kind of pushing for war, that are kind of goading America into going into war with Iran. Look, the United States should be doing the opposite of that right now, given how big of a hand the United States have had in destabilizing the Middle East. Which is also why I have a lot of time for somebody like Tulsi Gabbard, who says that the US has already caused enough problems in the Middle East and it's time now that the United States gets out of this area and brings the soldiers home. The United States haven't really achieved anything by being in the Middle East, and in fact, you can argue that they've made the Middle East more unstable by making Iran the sort of prominent power in the region. So there's a lot that I agree with these guys on. What I don't agree with these guys on is the fact that somehow Soleimani and Iran has some sort of moral high ground now, or somehow that they're the good guys for fighting ISIS. Look, this is a brutal regime that imprisons women for not wearing the hijab. It executes homosexuals. It kills its own people simply for using their right to protest. Not to mention massacre of innocent Sunnis and training and sending child soldiers to their deaths. So let's not put these guys on a pedestal in any way, all right? And I want to ask you as well, do you think that somehow Iran or Soleimani have some sort of a moral high ground in this area? Let me know your thoughts and comments in the comment section down below. Again, guys, if you liked today's episode, make sure to leave a like, leave a thumbs up. It helps me out. It helps this channel out a great deal. It's a brand new channel. And if you like, make sure to share this episode as well. If you like what we do here on the Sham Sharma Show, and if you'd like to support the Sham Sharma Show, make sure to click on the Patreon link in the description down below. Become a patron of the show. You get the brand new mugs that are coming out of the Sham Sharma Show as well. You also get to get access to the Sham Sharma Show WhatsApp and Discord servers. And along with that, if you enjoyed today's episode, if you like what we do here on the Sham Sharma Show, but you haven't subscribed already, what are you doing? Click on the subscribe button down here. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to press the bell icon as well. And yeah, check out other videos that we have going on for the show over here and over here as well. I am sure you will like them too. I will see you for the next episode. And until then, stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll see you guys soon.